he is.
I don't want to wear a suit every day.
This is a handout from Dan on the cemetery, which we don't need to read before the meeting.
Okay.
This is just a large copy of the Sandy Beach materials, printed out a little larger scale than what you might have been able to see at home.
Cool, thank you.
You made it.
Had some things that you wanted to talk about today.
Good evening, everyone. It's 6:30. I am going to call the Lake Mills City Council meeting to order on July 7th, 2026. Can I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Curler?
Here.
Ms. Schmager?
Here.
Ms. Quidnow? Here. Mr. Coots?
Here.
Mr. Bartlett?
Here.
Thank you.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our first item on the agenda is the correction and acceptance of the City Council meeting minutes, both from the June 15th meeting and the work session on June 15th and the regular session on June 16th. Any comments or corrections on those minutes? Yes,
I just
Lisa?
want to make a comment. I think the council minutes from June 16th are correct. Under the Sandy Beach parking, there's a time frame listed that's not the same as was reported in the Leader Independent. So I appreciate that the staff got it correct. So it's May 1st through September 30th. So thank you for getting that.
Okay, and thank you, Lisa. Any other comments? If not, we will accept those into the record. Next, we have board and committee reports. We have a library board minutes, a police and fire commission, and a joint review board set of minutes. Any comments or questions on those? Okay, seeing none, we'll accept those also into the record. Next, we have our correspondence and constituent contacts. And so, Mr. Greg Coots, would you mind starting that one off, please?
I had a communication from Drake about Harvey Road. I had a couple communications about Sandy Beach, one specifically about lifeguards at Sandy Beach in view of the tragedy that happened there. I did have one contact where I reached out to Jane about the volleyball, and she got back to me with some thoughts on that. And I also got a follow-up about the I also got a follow-up about the community meal that's being hosted at Club 55 through the Jefferson County ADRC that the city provides some funds for. And I believe that's it since the last meeting then.
Thank you, Greg. Lisa?
In addition to those, I received a contact about the Cottage Hotel apartments, golf cart use in the city. I received some resources for updating tree ordinances. I think something came in for all council members on curfew, which Drake took care of for us. I've copied on something related to the golf course, sent some information about Daybreak Foods and the egg processing. We were all invited to a webinar on the public trust doctrine later this week, and I think that's all I got.
Thank you, Lisa. Jim?
Yes, in addition to those emails that were common to all of us, I think. Oh, there we go. In addition to emails that were common to all of us, several about Sandy Beach, the lifeguard and so forth, I received some comments from citizens about golf course litigation, which is not a matter that we're considering. So that's all.
Thank you. Michelle?
The only thing I have to add is that I had correspondence with both Rock Lake Activity Center and Club 55.
Thank you. In addition to many that you have already mentioned, I attended a meeting with Drake Daly and Dan Drescher and a small group of citizens regarding some topics on the golf course. I joined the JRLC meeting last month. I received a commercial real estate inquiry, and I forwarded that on to Drake. And I also attended 2 meetings of a group of residents and community members who are supporting our decision to add a food and beverage pavilion at Sandy Beach. And they're calling themselves the Sandy Beach Hospitality Committee. And this particular group is interesting. They have expertise in running restaurants, construction management, finance. It's a very interesting set of folks with expertise. And so I joined 2 of their meetings and just to see what they were advocating for or interested in. And so I'm sure they will have some ideas that they'll be sending along to council when they decide that it's appropriate to do so. Okay. I think that covers correspondence and constituent contacts. So next we have our public comment. We do have 2 registered folks for public comment this evening. Individuals who have registered to speak are invited to address the council at this time. State your name and address when you are called on to make your comments. No action will be taken for items not listed on the agenda. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. And so first we have Scott Franz.
Hello, my name is Scott Franz. My address is 1009 South Ferry Drive here in Lake Mills. I'm the president of Woodland Beach Resort. I'm here with my treasurer, our treasurer, Randy Anderson, as he wants to comment on the Sandy Beach development plan included on the agenda for tonight. First, I want to make sure you understand what Woodland Beach Resort is. Woodland is owned by the owners of the 39 manufactured homes located on the property. We are Sandy Beach's northern neighbor and share more fence line with the park than any other property. In addition to the manufactured homes, there are 14 cabins we rent to anyone looking to enjoy time on Rock Lake and in Lake Mills. The amenities offered in the park are very important to both our owners and our renters. We want to express our enthusiasm for a permanent concession operation in the park. We miss the old sandbar, of course, but are currently enjoying Marty's Itsy Bitsy Barbecue. A permanent concession stand is a big attraction for our renters and our owners. The ability to walk to lunch or dinner is enjoyed by all. We appreciate the park maintaining a forest and natural area along our shared property line. We'd also like the non-motorized boat launch area. We like the fact that it's moving north to our property line along the lakeshore. Our main concern and the reason we're here tonight is the safety of that launch area. Over the last number of years, a rather large group of boat users have been anchoring in just offshore between Sandy and Woodland Beach's swim areas. They have a right to do so. This doesn't occur every day, but most weekends and holidays. The flotilla is generally well-mannered, but over the years, the Lake Mills Police have been contacted to address loud music and trespassing, but mostly for the fact that the flotilla at times completely blocks access to and from the lake. We have our own kayak and fishing boat rental launch from that area, but users must navigate through the partying. Once the city moves the boat launch area to the north end of the park, your kayak users will be facing the same situation. I understand there's a city regulation that requires a 50-foot separation between a swim area and motorized boats. But since the lake is policed by the township, this regulation is routinely ignored. Many times in the past few weeks, we've seen boats drift into both our swim areas, Sandy and Woodland, and sometimes under power. This is not a safe situation. Our hope is that the city plans to enforce that 50-foot restriction. We ask for your help on behalf of our owners and renters who frequent the restaurants, stores, and services of Lake Mills. If you have any questions regarding Woodland Beach Resort, I can answer them now or in the future, as both Mr. Daly and Mr. Drescher have our contact information. Thanks for the opportunity to express my enthusiasm for the park plan and our request to help in maintaining safe conditions in the waters adjacent to the park.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the list is Anita Martin to talk about hard-boiled egg processing.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name's Anita Martin. We live at 261 Pinnacle Drive in Lake Mills. We know what happens on Crossman Road does not stay on Crossman Road. According to Eric Struck in the DNR Wastewater Department and Barbara Pavlisak in the DNR Air Pollution Management Area, Daybreak Foods Creekwood is considering adding hard-boiled egg processing on Crossman Road in Lake Mills. What might this processing involve? How might it impact wastewater generation, air pollutant emissions, and quality of life in our legendary Lake Mills community? Earlier today, I emailed Barrett Ream, the Daybreak Foods Operation Manager, and asked these questions. Do any of the facilities currently owned by Daybreak Foods do any hard-boiled egg processing in the United States? If yes, in which state or states, and in which community or communities? If not, which hard-boiled egg processing facility or operations in the U.S. or elsewhere is Daybreak Foods looking to model the new processing after? We're looking for a comparable or a comparables, if you will. Hopefully, answers to these questions will be forthcoming soon. Those of us who've been in Lake Mills for a while know the impact the former well-intended fertilizer plant, Unlimited Renewables LLC, had on our community, our city, as well as our town. You will recall Unlimited Renewables LLC previously, for about a decade, processed Daybreak's chicken manure into fertilizer on Crossman Road. We cannot afford to have another unintentional experiment of sorts on Crossman Road. We need the highest level of environmental review and community scrutiny and involvement possible. And we need the new hard-boiled egg processing facility to be properly included in Daybreak's 5-year wastewater permit before it's finalized, and also for it to be included in Daybreak's air pollution control permit. What I am about to say is not an overstatement. Failure to do so could have potentially dire consequences on our Lake Mills community, on our quality of life, health, and well-being, and on our local tourism industry. I implore each individual here tonight to ask questions, voice concerns, and help in whatever way you can to bring about the best possible outcome for the good of your family and for the good and strength of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Okay, so that will close the public comment section for this evening, and we are on to Drake Daly and his city manager's report.
I've sent some updates on some items of interest to the council via email with the early closure, the holiday last week. I don't have a written report for you. I'll prepare one for the next meeting, but if there's any questions of me, please let me know.
Are there any questions? Okay, Drake, I think you're good. Okay, we're moving on to our council business. The first item on the agenda is a private well license application.
This is just a private well application. It would typically have come through when we did the consent agenda at the last meeting, but they were waiting on a result from the well, so it didn't make that one. Everything's come through, everything's fine, and I'd recommend that you make a motion and pass that through.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there a motion to approve the license application, private well license application?
I'll move to approve the private well license application.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Michelle Quidnow, a second by Lisa Curler. Any questions about this specific application? Yes,
I just
Lisa?
have a quick question about Linden Street. More generally, I recall we were working on trying to extend utilities up there previously, so I take it we don't have water service along that street right now?
No, utilities don't extend into Linden.
Okay, thank you.
Will granting a private well here delay implementing utilities throughout, on the rest of the street?
No, no. Typically, once we're readily available, the well, it has to be abandoned and connection is required.
Okay, no further questions. Roll call, please.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Our next item on the agenda is Resolution 26-57. Misty.
City Council Resolution 26-57, authorizing the filing of petition to vacate and amend a portion of city cemetery property.
Okay, and we also received, Dan has also a handout that goes along with this particular agenda item, and so I think I'll turn this over to you, Drake, or Dan?
This is a procedural petition that's required following the sale of the property that the city council authorized. Under state statute, the city is required to formally vacate, which requires a petition before the court. Attorney Drescher has prepared the petition and is ready to file following council action to formalize the vacation of this area for a cemetery. It was formally recorded years ago. There are no lots that have been sold within this area. There's no burials that have occurred. There's no disinterment or anything like that. It's vacant greenfield land that simply requires this petition in order to close on the sale of the property that the city council authorized at a previous meeting.
Okay, thanks for that update. Drake, any questions about this subject? Yes, Michelle?
I'm going to ask the question that I know the answer to, but I want you to answer it anyway. As far as the cemetery capacity, is this going to impede future cemetery plot?
There will be, the plat will be gone, so we wouldn't sell, those plots wouldn't be saleable anymore, but, so I guess I don't know quite how to answer that question. There'll be less land dedicated for cemetery purposes, but there's no imminent, there was not a sale or any action taken on any of those plots, so.
Maybe I need to ask it a different way. Are we at capacity currently?
No.
Do we have a lot of space for future plots?
I guess a lot is subjective.
Yep.
In 2021, when the subject area of the plat was platted for cemetery purposes, there was a memo that the then city manager wrote that estimated we had some 200 plots of cemetery lots available in the original Rock Lake Cemetery and the first expansion of that cemetery. This subsequent expansion that was done in 2021 added about 4.68 acres to the future Rock Lake Cemetery. That is the property that's immediately south of the Tyranina Park Road property that has been contemplated for residential, multifamily residential development immediately across the street from the market. So that greenfield, that 4.68 acres was platted for cemetery purposes in 2021, estimating that there were some 200 lots left in the original cemetery. The city sells between 8 and 12 new plots per year, so we do have some capacity. The remaining 3.5 acres-ish, 3.1 acres, because the portion of the subject property that's being vacated is about 1.5 acres based on the documents that you received via email and that were attached to the agenda earlier today. So about 1.5 acres is being removed from that 4.6 acre parcel for cemetery purposes. I don't know exactly how many lots are being removed in that process. I estimate it's about 30. So you still have capacity in that area. I just wanted to make that clear. That hasn't been plotted. It hasn't been used for cemetery purposes to this point. beyond being plotted, I should say. And then the other side of this is you previously authorized the sale of approximately 1 acre of the subject property to that developer for the multifamily development. So this step is necessary in that process. The additional half acre that is also being vacated will be utilized for whatever purposes are necessary, but it creates basically a boundary between the proposed use, that is multifamily residential, and the plan for the subject parcel that is platted cemetery. So with regard to capacity in your original question, we have years of capacity available to us.
Thank you for that breakdown.
The 2021 expansion, in my opinion, was probably a little bit premature. I don't know that it needed to be done at that point, but it was a priority in the plan of then administration, and the council approved that process, so.
It helps to know how many per year we sell, so thank you for that breakdown.
That
Very
was a
thorough.
rough estimate. It
Right.
does vary.
Yep, still good.
Yes, go ahead, Jim.
Based on your statement that we use about 8 to 12, I think you said, plots per year. So let's take 10, and you have 200 plots, that figures out to be 20 years, we'll be out of land.
Yeah, and I didn't include all of the now platted property in the expansion plat that occurred in 2021. There's hundreds more in there that aren't part of the inventory that I stated. The 200 that I estimated from the 2021 memo, obviously that's been diminished a little bit through time, but there's going to be a subsequent process that the council should probably contemplate anyway. There was certain road work that was done in the original plat of Rock Lake Cemetery a few years ago, a capital project that actually removed a number of pieces of road within the cemetery. After that process, it was returned to Greenfield. Our then cemetery sexton took it upon himself to create some new plots within that removed road area. That has not been formally amended to this point. So this is an initial petition for one specific process, but I think the council will probably have to consider a petition to kind of replat and correct the additions that have been made in the original plat. That area, I don't have numbers for you, but what I can say is through the capital project that removed roadway and the cemetery sexton's action, he added more lots as well. So I don't have a real number for you on what's available. What I would say is in the 2021 expansion plat, even if you do remove this section, vacate this section, there's still hundreds and hundreds available. And in the original plat of Rock Lake Cemetery, there's many available. I'd say probably up to 200, but I do not have a firm number.
Okay, so just again, but we don't have, as I understand, an official estimate of the date upon which the cemetery would be at capacity. I mean, many cemeteries do that.
I don't have that.
You know, based on the use per year and the amount of land, they just figure out and estimate the date.
No, I don't have that.
We don't have that. Would it be wise to create one?
Yeah,
What would remain, there'd be about 2,000 graves.
okay.
And then the plat that's in the exhibits, you know,
2,000,
If you want,
not
this is
200.
Brandon Herbert from Strand. He's prepared the plats, so.
Okay,
Thank you, Brian.
Strand did the 2021 plat. And so what would remain if you were to vacate, what's shown here for vacation, would be about 2,000 additional individual grave locations.
200 or 2,000?
2,000, plus the 200 that Dan was saying in the original area. So there would be a lot. The full plat that we did in 2021 was like
okay. So there'd be room
3,000 additional grave locations.
Sounds like there'd be room for all of us then.
It should last many years, even with what you're contemplating removing here.
Thank you.
Yes, Lisa.
I have a question, and I probably should have asked this at our last meeting, just to orient all of us. There's a row of spruce trees, a big line of spruce trees that's at the south end of the proposed multifamily property, and I believe it's on the city property. Is that roughly at the lot line? that's shown on this map? I'm just trying to orient myself and others, like where is that row of trees?
I'm only shooting from personal observations here. I haven't surveyed it. Perhaps Brandon can communicate this better. Based on what I've seen, that's pretty close to the lot line, that row of trees, and that would be in the vacated area. A large portion of that is within the 1 acre that has been proposed to sell to the developer.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this topic?
I would make a motion to approve Resolution 2657.
Second.
We have a motion by Greg Coots, a second by Jim Bartlett.
I just have a question, point of order. Typically, we have Misty read the titles, but I don't know if that's actually required or not. Did we have that on this one?
Yeah, I read it.
Oh, you did? Okay.
did, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
But thank you, because I forgot to hit the buzzer, so you just sometimes don't thank you. I don't know what I might miss. Oh. Okay, so then I think we're ready for roll call. Thanks, Misty.
Ms. Quidnow?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Hi.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye,
Motion passes 5-0.
thank you. Next, we have Resolution 26-58. Misty.
City Council Resolution 26-58, authorizing city manager to execute an assignment and assumption agreement pertaining to lots in Brookstone Phase 9 in accordance with the development agreement by and between the City of Lake Mills and Riverwood Holdings LLC.
Okay, Drake, did you have anything you want to add on this one?
I don't. I'm happy to let you introduce the item if you're willing to do so.
We're on Phase 9.
I'm one ahead, aren't I?
We're on, yes.
I apologize.
Oh, then, yeah, I get the next one.
This is an assignment that you've seen in the past. Riverwood is the owner. Mr. Giusti is the principal in that firm. So the developer that we've worked with for many years for the development of the infrastructure within the Brookstone Meadows subdivision. Under that agreement, the city installs that infrastructure. The owner waives their right to special assessment, and the city is paid back for that cost upon the sale of lots. If the sale of the lots doesn't occur within, I believe, a period of 5 years, then the owner becomes liable for the cost of that lot. That is specially assessed against it for these improvements. Typically, once the project is nearing completion, the owner has assigned the rights or has requested the assignment of rights pending a sale to a builder, and it has been Loose Homes for the previous phases the last several years, and is proposed to be Loose Homes again for Phase 9, the final phase. And so this is consistent with past assignments that have been granted in the past, and staff recommends approval.
I'll move to approve City Council Resolution 26-58, authorizing the city manager to execute an assignment and assumption agreement between City of Lake Mills and Riverwood Holdings.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Michelle Quidnow, a second by Lisa Curler. Any questions on this subject? Discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, next we have Resolution 26-59, Misty.
City Council Resolution 26-59, directing the Economic Development Commission to identify short-term and 5-year horizon revenue opportunities.
Well, I will take this one. So I'm sponsoring an interest and an action to do a special project for the Economic Development Commission to look at revenue opportunities for short and long term. And this is a reflection on a few things that I think have transpired over recent times and that are coming up in the future. First of all, we have a strategic plan, a need for an update coming up, as we discussed, at the beginning of 2027. And I think it's important for us to have some ideas of how we might be influencing, and we're making some short-term decisions. We are influencing our revenue plan, if you will, that we have at Sandy Beach. We changed one by changing our entry parameters by going from the guardhouse to parking as a different approach. We have several others, I think, in Sandy Beach that we haven't necessarily figured out yet, and reflecting also on a comment, Greg, that you made back when we were discussing Level B and talking about that particular 3.2 acres. And I believe your comment was in reference to, like, what are we going to do with it, but on a strategic sense, meaning replacing the revenue, but also then how do you repurpose the land? And so the economic development in the duties what we can allow the Economic Development Commission to take on is special projects. And so I think it'd be important to have this group take a look at what they would recommend as some short-term revenue opportunities in partnership strongly with staff. And I changed the resolution to include with city manager, because this is what staff does all the time, is looking at these. And I want to give Eric Schreiner some kudos for taking on the opportunity when we were talking about the Level B revenue to identify some new park fees, if you will, and doing some new benchmarking. And so staff does this all of the time, but taking it as a broad strategic look, both on the revenue side, such as parks and fees, but also looking at tax revenue on a more strategic sense, and have some things on a white piece of paper that are for consideration, I think would be helpful, so that we don't get faced with having a decision in front of us and we say, well, we'd like to make a decision, but we're uncertain because we don't know what the alternatives are. And so I'm putting this forward as a proposal to have the Economic Development Commission with a strong role with Drake, and of course, reaching out with staff and connecting also possibly with other committees such as the Parks Board would be advantageous for us as we move forward. And so I pulled together this resolution to achieve some of that work, get some of that work completed. Michelle.
You did a good job. I like what I see. I know that we have an Economic Development Commission. Do we have a city council member who sits upon it?
I am the new member of the Economic Development Commission, and Lisa served on that the last few years.
Okay, I was just making sure.
Yes.
We have representation.
Greg?
Yeah, is it going to be primarily focused on the Sandy Beach area and redevelopment? Because that came up several times in the talking points, or is it going to be broader than that?
My recommendation is to be broader, that this includes things, and I'll bring this up, Greg, because I know it came up, like wheel tax is an idea, as an example. It could be on the laundry list, and it is a TBD whether it's ever pulled off for consideration, but to have a more formal formal, and I would say transparent, set of what revenue elements are currently in flux and which ones are possible, is kind of where I'm going. It's more than just Sandy Beach.
Okay.
Although I think some of our Sandy Beach decisions are going to influence some money, but that's not the only focus. Lisa.
I just would like to comment, number one, thank you, Mary, for pulling this together. I'm very much in support of it. I appreciate you putting some additional precise timelines to it so that it's not just sort of an open-ended. I think that'll be easier for the commission to, wrap their head around. And I don't see this as like, we urgently need this, before we adopt our budget this fall, but it will be really nice to have it in hand. Like you said, as we maybe have some big decisions ahead of us in the coming couple of years, and to know, well, what if we make a decision that may involve some shift or reduction in current revenue, how, what are the opportunities that we have to offset that? And I do think I really appreciate your including Drake and his team on this, because I think they could sit down and in a 1-hour meeting probably come up with the first draft. They work on this stuff all the time. Brian, I know, is already, working on ideas within our parks that we haven't tried, but that other municipalities maybe are already doing. And so I think there's a lot of resources within our staff and their relationships with other communities that is going to be a really helpful starting point, so that the Economic Development Commission doesn't have to just start with a blank piece of paper and try to come up with, big ideas. And I also think that our staff are will have a good sense of what's some of the feasibility issues, or maybe you might have a big idea for revenue, but then maybe there's some staffing considerations that go along with that don't always think about. So just thank you for, including Drake and his team in this and putting some timelines, because I think they're realistic timelines, but it'll be helpful for the commission and their assignment to have some kind of checkpoints.
Well, I know that the Economic Development Commission does not routinely meet per se. It's not a monthly meeting, and so this will be a new project. So I'm expecting strong engagement, and we're able to get our participants available to move and get some work done for the timeline. So that is one, I guess, small risk on the availability of this particular group, given it's mainly driven by more commercial conversations, if you will. So I will share, that was one hesitancy when I was pulling this together, but I am confident that if we can get the majority of the group to pitch in and continue conversations, we'll have a good output.
I have a question.
Yes, Jim?
In addition to the intention to find new revenue sources, will the commission be interested in finding, eliminating recurring expenses that may not be necessary, resulting in the same net difference in
That's interesting that you asked that question, because I noticed, or actually it was brought to my attention, because I think I did not catch on the original resolution had operational efficiencies were also in scope. And I think that is 100% the accountability of staff to determine how best to do their job. Now, if there's something that is tied to a revenue source that has a blind spot, and there's something that the Economic Development Commission sees and wants to share with Drake, but I don't feel that doing expense, like how you do things faster, cheaper, better, is the role that the Economic Development Commission would be the right group to be looking at that. I think that really is 100% on Drake and his team's shoulders. And you can, unless you think differently, Drake, and that's something you would be looking to this commission to assist in, but I would think that is 100% on your.
Yeah, in general, operations are within the office of the city manager, in collaboration with the city council during the annual budget making process. So resources get allocated, and then I implement that budget based on city council priorities. So I think annually the city council has the opportunity to do that through the several work sessions that we hold on the budget, and then ultimate adoption. And then as a staff, we're consistently looking for ways in which to be more efficient, simply because there's not an excess of resources available to us.
Right. Well, when the goal is to end up with more money, there are two ways to do that. One is to make more money, and the other way is to spend less. So I just want to make sure we're not overlooking the expenditures.
And I think that's a great question. When you haven't had a chance to go through a budget cycle yet. No, you haven't. And so you will have a chance to see every line item and ask the question about why are we spending X on this, and have a dialogue if you think that it does not look like it's aligned with your viewpoint. And so that opportunity will come up this fall.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Mary, I have a quick question. I guess either for you or Drake. Under item number 1, it says including but not limited. One thing that pops into my mind is city-owned properties. And, are there any city-owned properties that perhaps are surplus, and would that be within the scope of this project to identify like sale of a property as a revenue opportunity?
Most of the property that the city owns is parkland and land on which our facilities sit. We have about 17-ish acres of city-owned property within the industrial park that we discuss with potential developers of commercial/industrial property. So there's limited ability to kind of explore that, but it certainly could be if such a property existed.
Okay, thank you.
Would it be beneficial to the EDC, is that what we're calling it?
Yep.
If council members have questions that could decide what priorities they would like the EDC to focus on, or do you want us to forward them to you? If there are specific things, or should we start with Drake and then?
Well, Drake and I haven't had a chance to talk about next steps, so I was hoping I would get a 5-0 vote this evening. But my thoughts on process would be an outreach to all of the city council members, and Drake, of course, has the knowledge base of, his knowledge and all of his teams, and that we gather as the Economic Development Commission actually has as much information from outside parties to use to spur their knowledge base, bring everybody to the same level, and also to understand what ideas you have or questions you may have regarding this particular subject.
Okay.
So I would start with just wait on that, because I think a formal ask would be my recommendation on how to start the conversation with the EDC.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt City Council Resolution 26-59, directing the Economic Development Commission to identify short-term and 5-year horizon revenue opportunities.
Second.
I have a motion by Lisa Curler, a second by Michelle Quidnow. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, everyone. I look forward to working with the EDC and Drake, and we'll ensure we meet that January 31st deadline for prelim ideas. Okay, next we have Resolution 26-60. Misty.
City Council Resolution 26-60, a resolution authorizing interim bridge financing for wastewater treatment plant improvements pending closing of the Clean Water Fund loan.
Okay, is this turned over to Sam?
Yeah, I can take it. So, being that we're having expenses incurred on the wastewater treatment plant, we're in need of a bridge loan to get us through until we can close on the Clean Water Fund loan. As my memo stated, I reached out to 3 of our financial institutes and only 1 got back to me. So our recommendation is scenario 2 with a fixed rate. And I did talk to our financial advisor regarding this, and that is also his recommendation.
Okay, so you said you're doing the fixed rate?
Yes.
Okay.
Scenario 2 with the fixed rate.
Do we need to specifically note that in the resolution?
Yes, because it's not in the resolution.
Okay, so we'll have to do an amendment.
Or scenario 2 with the fixed
Okay.
rate.
It's in there.
It's in there.
Scenario
I
2
have to
is,
pull
did
the-
I?
yeah.
Financing under scenario
Yeah,
2 is
section
presented
2.
by Bank CMG under section 2 of the financing terms.
But there's 2 options in section 2.
No, your recommendation's included.
Okay, I'm sorry. I forgot to put it in there.
Hey, you saved us a step.
Yes.
I have a question.
Yep, go ahead, Lisa.
Sam or Drake, just can you help clarify, sort of the differences between scenario 1 and 2 and what TEFRA limitations are?
Scenario 1 is a taxed base loan rather than a non-tax or exempt tax base.
Okay.
I'm not super familiar on them, and John's not here tonight, but he did recommend to go with the exempt and the fixed rate with this particular loan. We're only going to be paying interest on the draws that I do, and I'm not planning on drawing every time we have a bill because the wastewater treatment plant has enough money to cover a couple months, 6 months worth of engineering bills, because that's all we're going to have in the next year or so on the wastewater treatment plant. So I figure I'll do like maybe every 6 months. So we're only going to be paying interest on what we've drawn on that loan. We're not paying interest on the 9 million.
I just want to let you know, I wasn't sure if I was going to admit to this, but I did have to look up what a bridge loan is, because I've only purchased one house and I don't know what a bridge loan is, and so I looked it up. And to kind of piggyback on Sam, it's the difference between fixed rate and an ARM loan. So adjustable rate mortgage, you know, like it can go up or down versus fixed, where at any given moment, this could be a higher cost than this. I mean, it might be bigger now, but it might be smaller at another time. So I wasn't sure if I was going to admit that, but I'm okay with it now.
Yeah, they also call them construction loans.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jim.
The resolution says that the purpose of this is so we have money to spend now while we're waiting for the money from the Clean Water Fund. Is that right?
Correct.
Is the Clean Water Fund a grant or a loan?
It's a loan through the state of Wisconsin.
What's the difference in the interest rate between the Clean Water Fund and what this bridge loan is?
Terms and the amount of time that you can take out.
Well, I guess my question is, why do we need a bridge loan? Why did we not think far enough ahead so that we would be getting the Clean Water Fund loan in place?
Well, we're only
without the need
spending-
for a higher interest rate.
Construction isn't starting until next year, so we're only incurring design costs. So you would have been taking out an incredibly high amount of debt for services that you wouldn't yet be paying for.
Oh, okay. I see. And this Clean Water Fund is money that we need that is not in our budget, I understand, I would guess. Otherwise, we wouldn't be borrowing, right?
I mean, the bridge loan.
And it's not something that we would impose upon taxpayers to finance. We're going to do that in the long term by paying it back, but
Yeah.
we're not doing it up front.
It'll be ratepayers rather than taxpayers that are servicing the loan. That'll be the revenue source for it. But correct, the design costs aren't something that the operational budget could absorb
Okay.
without a loan.
This is not an expense that's going to be borne by the citizens, the taxpayers. It's generated from the use of this water, is that right?
It's generated by the ratepayers. The ratepayers of the wastewater utility is a larger base than taxpayers of the city. So ultimately, the debt will be guaranteed by the revenue of the wastewater utility, rather than the full faith and credit of the city of Lake Mills.
Who pays the wastewater utility?
The ratepayers.
I mean, who are the ratepayers? Is that every citizen in the,
Everyone who's connected to the wastewater utility, and then there are the former Rock Lake Sanitary District, which the city was mandated to take over back in the 90s, which includes some town of Lake Mills property owners.
so it is similar to a tax on the citizens?
It's a rate, it's a use, right? It's a user fee. So it's based on the amount of water that's passing through your meter. But ratepayers are unique from taxpayers.
Well, that's true, but everybody uses water, so everybody pays for those rates, I see.
Correct, there's more ratepayers than there are taxpayers.
Okay, thank you.
So I still have a specific question about the resolution. Perhaps maybe the memo is tripping me up. But in on page 2 of the memo, it says we're proceeding under scenario 2. But then under scenario 2, it provides 2 borrowing choices, the variable rate or a fixed rate, and we're choosing the fixed. So And so there were two options under scenario 2, but that's what I was asking is we need to be specific in the resolution note mentions scenario 2, but it doesn't mention the fixed rate. And that's what I was wondering, if we need to specifically mention that in the resolution, or if that is not, if I'm misunderstanding the memo.
I see. Yeah, the fixed rate option of 5.25%. Yeah, you can specify that in the motion with the resolution.
Okay.
I have one other question that I should have included the last time I asked. If our reason for choosing an interim rather than the Clean Water Fund, we didn't want to take on the entire amount as a debt now, couldn't the Clean Water Fund lend us only a small amount? So we don't take on the entire debt? I mean, is there anything stopping them from responding to a request for the amount that we're asking for in the bridge loan at a lower rate?
You'd start paying interest on the entirety of the debt instead of just the amount that you're drawing from on an as-needed basis. So I don't think it would be financially prudent to do so.
Why would that be? Why would you pay interest on $100 million if you're only getting $1 million?
I don't think we're gonna make 8 applications to the state trust fund loan.
I don't think the state trust fund loan will close until, I believe it's February of 2028 is when we would be closing after construction is started. They won't borrow us money prior to that.
So they just make a grant, or not, excuse me, not a grant, but a loan of the entire amount, not a portion of that?
Correct. And then when that amount comes in, then this loan will be paid off with the proceeds from the Clean Water Fund loan. We won't have 2 borrowings, we will only have 1, which will be the
Oh,
Clean
yeah,
Water
yeah.
Fund. So this is structured as a one-time payment when we close.
The bridge
On-
loan that you're speaking of.
Correct.
I was speaking of the Clean Water Fund loan. And,
Right, and they're not closing, the time frame for that loan isn't to close until February of 2028, January or
Right.
February of 2028.
I'll withdraw from the rest. Thank you.
I would like to make a motion to approve City Council Resolution 26-60, authorizing interim bridge financing for wastewater treatment plant improvements pending closing of the Clean Water Fund loan, with an amendment in section number 2 under the financing terms, the bullet point that says financing under scenario 2, add the phrase fixed rate. Just to clarify that that's
Second.
the version of scenario 2 that we want.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Lisa and a second by Lisa Curler and a second by Michelle Quidnow for the resolution with a motion to amend to include the fixed rate in the section with scenario 2. And Misty, did you get that captured? Could you read that to us to make sure we know that what the amendment would read?
So what I've got is, under the second to last bullet point, financing under scenario 2 as a fixed rate as presented by Bank CMG. Is that,
Yes. Perfect, thank you. Okay, any other discussion on the subject? Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action on Sandy Beach Improvement Project on the concept plan and timeline. And I was going to turn that to Brian, but I believe he's not here this evening, so Dustin, is that you?
It is me today, and Brandon.
Oh, awesome. Dustin and Brandon.
Give me a second to put it back up. Go. So, a number of materials have been provided to you. I guess we're kind of calling this the super alternative based on all the extensive feedback that we received during kind of the mini charrette we did with you at your work session. And again, we appreciate everybody's commitment to that day because it was very productive from our perspective. I know Drake put a memo in there that really kind of highlights all the changes that have been made based upon your feedback. And so, you know, that's really what we're showing here is specific implementation of those recommendations. So, you know, relocated volleyball courts, expanded naturalized areas around the site, seating areas to watch sunsets, a central plaza that overlooks the swimming beach and the water itself, right? A cafe plaza on the opposite side. The concessions pavilion, which we'll talk about in more detail here. And we have what that is showing is kind of a placeholder for size, and it's showing in kind of the pavilion portion, an open air prefabricated structure, and then some sort of concessions building attached to it. That would likely be some block-built structure. Playground area, a little more connected in to the plaza area and overlooking the beach. Path systems, shelters, the shower restroom facility would be separate and potentially in a prefab structure. And then the changes to the parking area, extensive stormwater management throughout, vegetated stormwater along Sandy Beach Road. This is showing about 360 parking stalls, so it's a pretty large area, which kind of dwarfs what's out there now, but in a much more organized fashion. Pedestrian drop-off areas, pedestal areas for potential food truck usage if you're having events and things out there. So I think kind of the first question is, first blush, is this checking the boxes of kind of your expectations for the super alternative, right? We talked about a lot of things and moved a lot of pieces around based on your feedback, but is this laying out kind of in a fashion that you were looking for? Hoping for some head nodding or
Some feedback.
or arrows, you know, slung at me is fine too.
I'll go first to
Greg?
break the ice then. I guess in my mind, this seems pretty responsive to what we were coming up with in the work session. As far as checking the boxes, I generally, yes, I know there might be, and I don't talk for all five of us, and other people may feel differently, and some people may feel very strongly about some specific boxes that I'm not taking into account. But yes, I think this matches up with what we were talking about, and I like the look of it, the fact that the swings were incorporated there, the concession pavilion was addressed, the volleyball courts are in place, the playground was moved. The answer to your question in my mind, Dustin, is yes.
Excellent. Sorry, yes.
Oh, answer Greg's question if you wish. I have a different question.
You didn't have a question.
Okay, I have a question about, there is no space for food trucks, as I understand. The concession pavilion will house food services.
So, yes,
Is that
specifically, there will be food service in the pavilion area. However, there is an area where we've always earmarked for electric pedestals if there were larger events that incorporated food trucks. The idea, again, being easy to put them in now, conduit and such, looking at the engineer. If you were to have food trucks, they do need a power source. So they're either going to run a generator, or you provide electric pedestals available to them in an area. Prominent, easy, but it's also quiet because they can just plug in 30 or 50 amp service or whatever they need.
Oh, I see electric.
There is an opportunity in that area, if it's not being used for food trucks, to potentially use it to enable golf cart parking, because it's a little separate from normal vehicles. But yes, there has always kind of been the mind on big events being able to be held out here by the city or civic groups and such, where you're going to have more than a single vendor available.
Right. Now, in the concessions pavilion, we don't have an expanded diagram of that, I guess. But how does the space that will be available for a food vendor compare to the size of a food truck? Now, let's take Marty's Barbecue right now. How many of those would you be able to have in the pavilion area?
Well, the pavilion is an open-air structure, so we'll kind of start there.
Concessions.
The concessions component is something that we do need to talk about in more detail. It's a part of the packet. There's kind of an alternative, an option A and an option B on the pavilion concessions building, right? So we were always working from kind of a dollar amount of $1 million, right? And I'll say, if Brian was here, he'd say, and working backwards, right? So what we've provided in the kind of cost breakdown is that option A mostly aligned with the open-air structure that you saw from previous memos in Sterling, Illinois, right? Prefab structure, you can add a certain amount of ornamentation. We were showing about a 4,000 square foot pavilion with about 1,300 square foot of concessions building, right? The cost breakdown that we provided kind of goes into that in a little more detail there, right? So,
Excuse me,
Yes.
Dustin, can I ask a question? I know Jim's asking specific questions on the concessions pavilion. I know you gave 2 high-level broad estimates. We haven't had really had a discussion as a council on our requirements, and I know this was our first glance at the dollars
It is.
on some of this, so I'm wondering if we can stick with the concept plan first.
Of course.
And then come back to the detail on any of the elements regarding like the pavilion, because this is our most complicated piece, and I would like
Okay.
to make sure we get the.
don't want to get on
I don't
off
want
on
to
a
go
tangent
down,
yet. Gotcha.
and I would like to, if
Okay.
we can stay focused on our first, the concept plan, like high-level concept plan first, and then we can peel the onion and get to the components next.
So,
That would be my preference, so we can try to get to our objective for today, which is concept plan support or
Of course.
not support, whatever we're going to
Absolutely.
land.
Absolutely. It is
Thank you.
important.
Sorry,
What
Jim,
you
and
mentioned
we'll
is
come back to that pavilion, because that's a really deep conversation.
those design elements is what would come next upon a blessing of a concept level. As we start moving into, I'll say 30% design, those are pieces that we have to start to hammer out, so Site Civil knows what it's designing for and such. So again, we show, the second page kind of goes in kind of some of the character images of this. This building down here is the one that you would have seen in Michigan. Right, we have some swings. Again, these are just representational images. Those are things that would absolutely be sorted out in detail with the council as you start moving into the design package itself, right? The selection of colors, themes, materials, all those accoutrements, all of that will come in later steps. But we want to make sure that we were kind of hitting the nail on the head. Here, playground areas, 2 separate playground areas based on kind of age of children, right? You don't mix very small children, with mothers, with active, 7, 8, 9-year-old children, right? So again, we're just showing some representational images of what those things could be. The actual selection of what's going to be a part of that, we would work with a vendor on to make sure it's checking the boxes that you feel are necessary for the community. Again, landscape parking lots, right? Lots of foliage, lots of breaking up the heat island effect. Providing shade is so important. I know there's a component with working with Rock Lake Improvement Association on naturalized plantings in areas throughout. We want to make sure we are providing ample location for them, not just on the periphery of the site and right as a transition to the water or out to roadways, but within the site itself. Obviously, the volleyball.
Sorry, Dustin,
Chris.
before you move on from the
Yeah.
parking lot, and I did have kind of a question about that. You've got, looks like 3 or 4 islands with what is shown as 4 full-grown trees in each. I'm assuming that that's not all there right now, that's something that will take time?
Yes, and so it depends on if we're planting ornamental style trees in certain places or shade trees in certain areas. And I don't want to speak for Brian as a landscape architect on here. That's part of the process you go through is maybe some are going to have some shorter ornamentals. Those start, at 2.5-inch caliber, and they grow pretty quick because they don't get too tall. They're kind of an understory tree, and then obviously others. And so it's also going to be dependent upon where we're placing lighting elements, right? So we're not having trees growing into lighting elements and such. So all of that kind of comes, again, representational graphics, the areas that we're showing for interior landscaping, swales, or bioretention are to be sized appropriately to afford you to plant what you need to in there.
Cool, thank you.
Can I go?
Yep.
I'm going to make you go backwards to the playground.
To which
Okay.
one?
The playground.
So
Playgrounds.
so can I ask, would it be best, council, would you like to work through each element of the park? Would you like to talk about the concept first? I'm going to make sure that we're getting everyone's thoughts out. Do you have I'm looking for a
Big
good
picture would be
process.
helpful overall.
You do not have to design the individual elements tonight.
No, I was only going to provide feedback, if that's all right.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that the playground in our meeting time was set a little bit further back from the beach, just for safety purposes. If I remember correctly, it would have been in what I would look at as the picnic area, just so that it's not so close to the beach and it's close to the bathrooms. I know it's close to the bathrooms here, but just as a process. Other than that, I'm on board with everything. That was the only thing.
I think as placement becomes more defined, I think we'll also be looking at what currently exists in that park, and is there placement of things around certain
Yeah.
things? So it may not line up perfectly with, what we see here, because we'll be looking at actual conditions on the ground and what can be preserved and what has to change.
Okay.
Go ahead, Lisa.
And I appreciate you saying that because I know staff are working on a tree inventory, and unfortunately, we might not be able to save as many mature trees as we would like, but if there are some that can be saved, that would be important to, work into design. From the concept plan, I just have 2 comments. I agree with Greg that I think it very well reflected the conversation that we had in the work session and the ideas that people brought forward and the changes that we suggested from the prior version. There's 2 things that I'm wondering about, and I don't know how they affect, like, approving a concept plan tonight. But one is putting all of the boat slips, that are the rental boat slips on one pier that extends farther out in the water. I suspect that DNR may not approve that, so we might have to be looking at, I think it's fine to be a picture on a diagram that, we're not necessarily proposing to reduce the number of rental boat slips, but that's going to be a permit process that I think we're going to have to go through and find out what DNR would allow there, and, anyway, so I don't have a problem with it as a picture, but I just want to make sure we're not assuming approval on that. And then the other piece is, and I called Drake earlier today because I wanted to verify, how many parking stalls do we have now? And you said you thought maybe 140 roughly. So I I like the change in layout in the parking lot because we saw some different designs that were laid out a little bit differently. But I wonder if we, in light of cost, overall project cost, if we would want to consider holding on the, I guess it's the eastmost portion of the parking lot, which is kind of where Level B is now, and maybe not constructing that right away. Now, maybe it should be designed, I don't know, but I would be really hesitant to put in 100+ more parking stalls than we currently have before we have data on like how our new parking system is going and what really is the demand. And maybe we want to do something else there, like having event space or having a RV park or, you know, and once we put concrete down for a parking lot, you know, that's for 50 years. So I don't know how that comment fits within approving a concept plan tonight or not. I'm not, if we think there's demand, that makes sense as a place for expanded parking, but I'm just not sure if I want to construct that right away.
That's something I was thinking about too, and wondering as we were going through this. And actually, as far as the concept plan goes, I was okay with it as is because it was pretty easy for me just to picture, we know it's going to take time to convert B, and we can hold off. It would be easy to hold off on building that, you know, that you could build the rest of it without building that out. And even, you know, looking at that there, if you do have a paved lot, all of a sudden that can become a big event space too. So, you know, just with the 2 rows of trees down there, if you just put a tent, a tent over the top of, between the two, now it's a big pavilion or something. So, yeah, I think that still could be flexible in that spot there.
I'm just kind of drawing a line here, but, and I'll look at Brandon on this as
Is
designing, but constructing, phasing. I mean, all those kind of conversations will be coming.
Yeah.
But you could have a main entry, you could have a circular loop. You don't necessarily need to construct all of the improvements. Those things are going to be dependent upon, obviously, budget issues, right? One of the things that we'll work through, and we're going to talk about later with Brandon, is, what things can be designed, where's the economy of scale in design, and then really what's the order of operations on construction, and, making sure we're not taking, 2 steps forward and 1 step back on something, but also what really needs to be there in a certain time frame incrementally to make the site the gem that I think everybody in this room is expecting it to become.
And I appreciate you saying that. And just a follow-up is, I think not constructing the eastern part of the parking that's shown right away still leaves that space open for some future use. It helps us maybe defer some of the costs down the road. I think that section alone was priced at about $450,000, so that's a pretty big chunk. But hearing what you're saying, Dustin, I would be interested to know if but then are we going to incur another $100,000 in mobilization costs to build it 3 years later? That's relevant for us to know.
Well, and is that going to impact your installation of the electrical pedestals?
Depending on where electricity is specifically coming from, you'd put in conduits and it would just stub to a place, and then, I'll let Brandon get into the constructability components.
So, the way that we had laid out the schedule, there was a window in there that was constructing the remaining elements, and that remaining elements could be exactly what you're saying. It could be only the 160 stall parking lot with the entrance feature to the right of the yellow line that Dustin drew. We could design the rest of it and just not build that and have it be a future phase. I think some of the important considerations is that if you are contemplating that as like impervious area parking lot, that we take that into account for stormwater basin sizing and the space that we leave available for that. That would be the main thing. If you're contemplating that as being grass permanently, that would be important to know with the original design, I think.
Yeah.
You could design even the electrical pedestal thing, you know, I can see a way where you would design that pathway, that area, and some sort of cul-de-sac or hammerhead turnaround for fire engines or food trucks or something like that, that you could even, you know, add that little lobe onto the project if you wanted to, and leave the main 100 stall area kind of open for future. Or you could design it all at one time, but if you never want to build it, then that design effort might be a little bit wasted, right? So.
So while we're on the parking lot, so I'm going to go back to concept. Generally, I think it needs some, I have some comments on refinement, but I really like this particular Super S or whatever you're calling it. I think it does reflect what we discussed, and with some other little, like the parking lot redesign, something that it's different and unexpected. And while we're on the parking lot, I'm curious to know, I was looking, I have a hard time looking at this without looking at the costs, and Lisa's bringing up a great observation or suggestion of possibly only doing a portion of the parking lot. But this parking lot looks expensive on a piece of paper, and I'm not a parking lot expert, and it also looks like it might be a lot of work for staff, only because there's these green areas, and so I think, I love the parking lot. But it, to me, isn't the place where I want to spend my money. And I'd rather, if there was an alternative that gets us what we want and it's half the cost, I would go with the half the cost parking lot than I would but I don't know enough about parking lot design. Because I think this looks really interesting, and I think that would be beautiful in this park, and I actually liked the perspective of the natural, I like the theme, even the natural playground, and, you know, you're on the beach in the sand, and, you know, sunset views. And so I'm feeling like the criteria our goals that we had set as a council are reflected in this, including the parking lot. But I would just like to just make sure that we're not over designing, and if we could squeeze money out and still make it look beautiful. And I don't know what that would look like. I'm just bringing it up as an observation, only because I think this looks great.
We do have pretty robust landscaping requirements within our code that we require private developments to abide by, so
Okay.
we would want to, I think, the city is not bound by that. You can exempt yourselves from those things for cost-saving measures, but I think part of the design of the parking lot is keeping with those
Okay.
standards of what is within the code. It may not require everything that you see there. I think the other component was, I think during the work session, one of the comments was talking about when you pull up to the park, seeing green space and trees and things like that, and trying to avoid or mitigate as much as possible the sight of the size of the parking lot with that green space. But we certainly could tweak that design and look for cost-saving measures if that was a priority.
Well, I'm always, the entire park, I look at it that way. It is, if it is a 5-star, but you can get, if we all would like a 3-star, you know, because I want to be mindful of the money that we're spending and just to be scrutinizing where you spend it. And I think this parking lot would be great. It's just, if I'm gonna, and it may be that this is what we have to do, but it look like, oh, is this really a super expensive parking lot? And is it hard for staff to maintain it? But just my 2 questions on it, but I love it.
Can I ask a question before you answer the question? I'm sorry. Are we looking at both the roadway cost and the parking lot A, or just parking lot A?
Both, all 3 of those, I think, go together, don't they?
Well, they're different line
asphalt.
items, so
Right, but we'd have to add them all together.
Right.
Oh, good question.
Okay.
So a couple thoughts on what I'm hearing. The code thing that Drake mentioned that is, right now is every 10 stalls, there's supposed to be a parking lot island for green space, breaking up the heat island thing, but then also usually those islands are used for lighting. Because the city code also requires that you can't have concrete elevated pedestals. It has to be 6 inches or less to grade. And that doesn't really protect the actual pole, so most of the time those are located in those islands. So if you would have lighting here, which you probably would want, they're kind of a double whammy of meeting city code, it's less impervious area, and then they're protecting the lighting. The middle strip there and some of the edges where they're thicker green areas, I think what we're envisioning is like bioretention, where you have the parking lot kind of flowing. It gives you some grading flexibility, but where you're sending the water, you don't have to send it all one direction or necessarily put inlets in the middle of the parking lot or something. You can funnel that to a bioretention swale that then gets picked up by a pipe at one end or something. That, you know, kind of adds that element. And the next agenda item, you know, may pair into this possibly, that, you know, oftentimes those bioretention areas are the spots where you get the, like the nice seed mixes where you have the wildflowers, you know, 2 years later, and midsummer, like right now, it's, you know, you got all kinds of pollinators and birds in there and stuff. Again, I'm not the one maintaining it. Those oftentimes do something, you know, if you want to keep them like that, there's some weeding and keeping the brush out and things like that. But I guess those are just some of the elements that we had built into this. You know, some of the pedestrian sidewalk connectivity, you know, like it's nice to have, but obviously we all have seen plenty of parking lots that people don't, you know, just
Yeah.
walk down the aisle.
So that is a challenging area. Like the one is, you're probably gonna want the multi-use trail going down the middle because it's gonna connect out to the glacial drumlin. The interior stuff, and I will pick on, that was a great example, was the Lake Mills Market, right? They have areas like down the center where getting people out of from walking in the middle of the drive aisles, it's not a big deal when it's not busy. It's not a big deal in the middle of summer. In the winter, if you're at the market in the winter and Christmas time or Thanksgiving time, right, it's busy. And if you have kids, getting children out of walkways, especially children, right, from a safety perspective. I mean, there are things that can be done. I don't want to say this is the only way that it can be done. But it is something you do want to consider, is where are you having your walkways and, you know, kind of encouraging people to get out of the road itself, out of the drive aisles themselves. But again, there are many ways to skin this cat. So I think your kind of points are taken on, you know, where can we sharpen the pencil a little bit on some of the elements related to the parking lot, to let's not spend all our money there, but let's make sure it looks nice and it's a great sense of arrival and such into the space that you're trying to create.
So did we answer the question of which line item that falls under?
I guess I didn't hear that question specifically, so.
It's roadway 2-lane asphalt. It's, it's a second line item on the
Yeah, I'm gonna.
opinion of
Yeah.
cost. And does that is that part of the parking lot expense? I think that's what you were asking, Michelle?
I just, yeah,
Gotta hear
because I
that.
think parking
That.
lot B was what Lisa was saying, maybe we hold off on, which is the part that's currently where B level is, I think.
Yeah.
That just happened to work out that way.
Part of B, yeah.
So, I mean, that right there cuts $450,000 from the budget, which is sweet, but I just wanted to know if that included the second line item on this sheet, which says the roadway 2-lane asphalt. What does that entail? Where is that going?
Philip Dustin,
Up
the
at the
second
top.
line item at the
I'm
very
sorry.
top of that document.
Yeah.
It's the second,
Keyboard with me, I'm trying to get stuff out of the way.
there.
So shared use
Right there.
path, roadway,
Mhm.
2-lane asphalt, yeah. So that's that roadway coming in the center. When we.
Oh, that's
So
like a
I
boulevard?
thought it was the
Undo
one to the
that.
far, well, this is upside down, so I gotta look. So if you to the west.
This one?
I think it's
I
the
thought it was this
circulation roadway.
I thought it was
Yeah.
this.
The two entrances, the
Uh-huh.
kind of the loop. It would be the two entrances and the loop that kind of would connect everything.
Okay, so we're talking about,
The areas that have parking stalls, I guess I would probably
Yeah.
say. No parking stalls.
Okay.
Oh, the whole
okay,
loop.
so the
that's-
asphalt that is not a parking stall.
By and large, yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that's not really optional. I mean, I think that's sort of the core.
right.
Way to
But
get
I just
into
wondered if
parking.
that if the,
In and out.
Yeah.
yeah, like how is the parking lot cost? What's entailed in the park? I mean, these are all things that we can, like, if we wanted to get into the nuts and bolts of it. But if we're talking about big picture and we're looking at possibly trying to save money and we're looking at cutting things, I want to make sure I know what we're cutting besides just space? You know, is it cutting trees? No pun intended. Is it taking out elements that are not clear in this
Yeah, again, we're kind of
situation?
we're at the kind of the high planning level.
Yeah.
Cost, right? As you get into the design component, like details, you start moving to 30%. Right? We're kind of just in broad schematic. When you start moving to 30%, you get a better understanding of quantities and such. And I'm looking at Brendan on that. It's, we get a better understanding of what how that translates to dollars, right? Right now, we're using kind of rules of thumb on linear foot costs on certain elements.
Square footage
Okay.
costs.
Yeah.
I mean, this project, if you were to design it and bid it, how many items are here? It's 30, maybe
Yeah.
20. This might have 200 bid items, so they're just trying to lump things.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just go through, I just have I know you're looking for feedback, because the next phase, because I really think this is really solid. There are some points of refinement that I feel like are outstanding that we haven't talked about. I know Lisa brought up the pier, and we desperately need a place for boats to come in off the lake, public stopping spot, and I know we had a public comment. I saw a near disaster this weekend. It was one of the most frightening things I've seen, right, because we had a swimmer cut across the lane and a boat was in reverse coming out by our old launch. And it was a near miss that someone got hit. And so the boat traffic and swimming traffic, we have to solve that with this new design, whether it means we find a way to move, whether it's we have 100, do the town's 100-foot or keep our 50-foot, but how do we ensure that we don't have live motors next to the swim ropes? What does that look like? And how do we design it? And then how do we get enough access? And then here goes the revenue. If we give it public access, is it QR code? Is it free? How do we do the public part? And then how many of them are we still going to be in the service of providing annual rental spaces of a slip or not? And that's a decision I think we have to make, and it's a revenue generator for us. And we are right now showing that we have two current pier sections, and we're going to one. And we do have space on the other side of the launch, but I know that's kind of wonky because some of the folks have created a large set of boats and are kind of encroaching over, and there's some weird stuff going on there. So maybe we could partner with some folks and make the other side also work on the other side of the launch for the public or the private. I mean, I think that has to be figured out.
Those elements are kind of easier to grapple with. If you're saying, well, we want it right in the middle of the swimming beach, that's a challenging thing to account for. If you're saying we need to make sure that we are accounting for it on an edge.
Yeah, just I take it out of the middle. Right now, we have it in the middle. It doesn't belong in the middle, is what I'm saying.
What this is representational of is moving out of the way and saying, well, you certainly don't want to move it in front of the sunset swings when you don't see beach and water, you see boats, right? We want to make sure that it's relatively convenient for the boater, but boater is not the priority here, right, on the beachfront.
I agree. It just needs refinement, because these are if I had to give my laundry list of things that when
Sure.
I looked at the concept.
I have a note to that effect to make sure that we're just attending to what really can be done with the piers to make sure that they are available, but certainly aren't in the way and creating hazards. I think everybody's been on that page.
Is it your intention not to expand the number of boat slips?
We didn't look at
can't.
that, in truth.
We
were
can't.
focused on everything above the water here.
Well, we
And-
discussed the limit of number of boats on the lake on our last meeting.
You're limited to
regard
pier
trailer
size by the
parking.
DNR.
Yeah,
But I think that it has to do with, it's not within our control to control the number of boats on the lake.
But no, the DNR has set the number that the city can have as a part of our offering. And so we cannot add more city pier spots. They tell us how many, so we're at a max now, I'm guessing,
Yeah,
right, Drake?
it's based on the frontage, it's based on the frontage that we have. The DNR regulates how many boat lifts, piers we can have on.
Okay, so we'll just meet that limit, whatever it is.
Or less.
Typically, we have in the past, yes.
That sounds
been-
like transient boating. Sorry, go ahead if you weren't done.
Well, no, it's just, I've heard, when I wander around there and ask people questions, some of them complain that there's not enough space. They've been waiting for 3 years or something to get a spot, and there, obviously, if there is a limit on the number of spaces, then that's not within our control to change it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well known, as Brendan was saying, is really transient, people who want to come up and partake of the concessions and
Yeah.
finding them a spot, but, there may be a couple of spaces available, and when they're filled until someone leaves, right? I mean, that's,
Yeah, okay.
I think maybe.
We have to think through
Kind
that.
of historically speaking, based on what people have told me and still does occur, is the beaching of boats to kind of gain access to the beach from the water. I think maybe there's been conversations in the past of, can the city install a temporary, an area for a boat to come in essentially and dock themselves so that they can go eat at the pavilion or something like that to avoid kind of the beaching that may have occurred in the past that some people may view as a safety hazard. So I'm not familiar with DNR regulations on like the temporary nature of it. It's something that could be explored, but as far as like people who are allowed to essentially store their boat on the water for a season, that is a maximum set by the DNR based on the frontage that we own.
I can understand the overnight storage and, how to leave a boat down there all summer, that kind of thing. And we could have 10 times as many if they were allowed, that kind of thing. But if people are already on the beach, on the water, that is, and they want to zip over here and buy from our concession stand, well, that sounds like a good idea, except that you come into the danger issue. I mean, the public safety issue, because they're going to be running up there where they might run into some swimmers.
And that's all I'm saying on the concept, and somewhere in the concept, we need to address that. I'm at the concept level. I know, it sounds like a detail. I know, Michelle, you made a word
are
about
you
that.
saying you
but
want a buoyed, defined swim area that
I don't know what the solution is. It
effectively
just needs.
think that
prohibit boats
we're-
from beaching themselves?
Yeah.
I think maybe ideas on what could possibly be done to improve safety and limit interaction between motorized moving boat craft and swimmers and beachgoers, I think is kind of the
And the swim
takeaway.
ropes.
What could be done? Not necessarily that we have the idea tonight, but are there ideas that
Yeah.
could potentially be implemented into the overall design?
Question along those lines, is the priority to keep all the motorized, even transient, at one end, like the dock, the boat launch are all at one end? Would you want any transient facilities down there as well, away from this kayak launch and non-motorized launch, especially given the comments we heard earlier today? Because I guess in my mind, then for evaluating additions or whatever to this concept, that you would try to find a solution down at the right side of the.
You mean transient boat facilities?
Transient, like you just described,
Yeah,
like if you
right,
wanted to.
right,
come
right,
up,
right.
So
Like,
the Parks Department had Parks Board had recommended all of the active motors to stay near the launch, and we're proposing non-motorized stay
yeah.
to the other side. And some of that is because you also have the Woodland Beach ropes, and so it does get very busy. Boats are coming in and the city's ropes and the Woodland Beach ropes, and there's a lot of motors that are spinning around, getting close to those swimmers, and that's a solution, some solution in the concept, how to manage it. I mean, we're gonna have a much bigger beach, so we can start the swim ropes down further possibly, but then how do you deter boats from just getting, I don't know what the solution is, but there's something that needs to be thought
I
out.
can think of a few options that, to your earlier comments, I don't want to get into the weeds.
Yeah,
But
I'm trying to
I
keep it
have a
high.
few thoughts
Concept
from
needs.
my own life of what I could maybe put in here or think of putting in there, so.
And then the only other concept comment I have, because I like the layout of everything, is the size of the plaza. And a lot of people don't like, if you go and see, you sit and watch where people like to sit. Nobody likes to sit in the sun. Everybody grabs the shade, and then they find the first table they can drag into the shade. Not a lot of sun lovers, but unless there's some sail shades, and maybe that's part of the design, because it looks like a very large sunspot, and I'm not certain we're thinking about putting umbrellas on tables, and that's a lot of work and money. And so I just conceptually thinking about the size of the plaza and whether it's positioned to ensure we've got some shade, or I didn't know if the purpose of the plaza was for something else that I wasn't visualizing. I was thinking it was seating.
I was wondering if the Cafe Plaza behind the concessions, closer to the parking lot, was more aligned with what we were thinking about when we were thinking of the seating area. And it looks, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like you've got some, I would say, lights, so to speak, on the Cafe Plaza that are kind of splayed out there, potentially.
Yeah, just some pedestrian lighting to.
Yeah, so like, when I was, to piggyback on that, I think when we were talking about, I think it was an L shape, when we were talking about the concessions plaza, like there was an L, like the bottom part of the L would be facing the beach. Not that I'm not a fan of the rotunda. I mean, if you were going to do some kind of like a show or something, that would be totally appropriate. But I feel like the Cafe Plaza, the way that's set up, putting that on the other side might be a better option.
My takeaway from the work session was that we wanted to maximize seating area that was in view
Yeah.
of the water and the potential sunsets. And so,
Right.
I think that is why the plaza is kind of designed as it is. And then the back part is more picnic, grass area seating.
Benches.
I think we certainly can look at the size of the plaza. I think we can definitely explore shading options on a plaza that are probably some lower cost compared relative to the rest of the project as far as, sunshades or other things like that could be installed there. It's just, non-covered space is a lower cost than covered space is going to be. And so if we want, if you wanted a band to be able to be out there or something like that, what is it that you're hoping is taking place when you're talking about, placemaking with someone who has a spot down there, a commercial kitchen? Will we see more activity into the evening hours, perhaps when the heat and the sun isn't as
it's
intrusive for people who may be looking to sit on that plaza area? So I think all of those things can be discussed, budget, priority, coupled with how do we think people want to use the space based on what they end up telling us. But I think that maximizing the ability of people to sit and view the water and the sunsets is why the plaza is oriented in the manner in which it is.
Well, I love it. I was just asking about its size is all.
Yep,
Like,
yep.
just like, because it's sun, and you're bringing up a really great point about the evening. It's not all just about the daytime, so, but I like it's curved, and I just think, like I said, I'm fine tuning, these are my fine tuned comments, because I feel like this is a real nice layout, personally. And I've gotten a lot of good feedback from citizens on this as well, liking the central playground has been a real big one. Michelle, I know you brought that up at the, one of our meetings, a lot of comments liking the location of that, and then the Pavilion Plaza area too, so a lot of good comments.
I do imagine on, like, the last couple of weeks we've experienced, shade will be a priority of people there during the day. That is no doubt.
And I do know that people have been they bring in their own little pop-up tents, primarily on weekends. You see a lot more of those. They bring in and pop up their
10 by
little
10.
10 by 10
cover,
tents.
yeah.
And so there are workarounds, but I wouldn't envision 10 by 10 tents on the plaza. I wasn't thinking that was going to be what we're advocating for.
The pavilion is a shaded area, right?
No, I don't
Pavilion
think
is
it was.
shaded,
Yeah.
yeah, their
So-
concession,
Seating.
the
Oh,
pavilion,
right.
the
There'll be-
pavilion,
They're
absolutely.
seating,
Yeah,
open
that's
air, yep.
that's open air seating with a cover, right, like a roof.
Yeah.
But there are a variety of sunshade, sail shade options that can be explored in like the plaza
Yeah.
itself. That, again, it's kind of like the next step when you get into design is kind of the fit and finish of everything.
Okay.
You're going to have to work with landscape architect on, is it pavers, is it concrete, is it colored concrete, is it stamped concrete, right? You're gonna get into the weeds on a lot of things, and it's gonna be, well, the plaza is 13,000 square feet, right? That's a quarter acre of plaza space. right? Is it all tables? Is it tables and shade areas? Is it, right? There's a seating wall, like kind of the arc is a seating wall. So
Which I like.
as Brian had told you last time, to kind of keep the sand where the sand should be and to kind of regulate how people are getting down there. There's, a couple of steps down, but enabling people to sit on the wall and just look at the water or face the concessions and have it say however they want to use it. But like, it is a sitting area in and of itself.
I do think that there's conversations to be had too with the future purveyor within the pavilion as far as duties, responsibilities, obligations of kind of the area, that can all be talked about in a lease agreement as well, as far as if there are, sunshade things that have to go up and come down, things like that. I think those conversations can occur with somebody that we entered into a relationship with at that area. So I think there's opportunity, as we determine, as we right size it and what is correct to meet, the city council's goals, and then, what is best serving the public.
So is this going to the design and construction schedule now that we're kind of,
Yeah, you don't have to.
Talking about these things?
You don't have to approve the construction schedule tonight. The council asked for an aggressive implementation schedule, and the one that's attached certainly meets that goal. That's a full build out over the next year and a half of every amenity that you see in the concept. That it will be a significant undertaking, both from the city's perspective as well as our consulting staff as well, a significant mobilization of resources to bring it to fruition. So that's just showing you what could be done. Whether or not the resources are available to make that happen, whether or not you want to accomplish everything that quickly, whether or not there are things you want to delay or not do or stretch that while accomplishing your largest priorities. There's going to be some things that need to occur in a certain order, but there is flexibility that we can, as we enter into design, can discuss on, when implementation is going to occur. This does assume an aggressive decision-making schedule, essentially, that we would be proceeding with design of this plan over sometime yet this summer/early fall to be able to start providing, especially if you wanted to have 2027 amenities available at the start of next season.
so can I ask a follow-up on that? The design, little diamond things, are those getting to the weeds of it?
Yes,
So,
yes.
Yeah, okay.
The CCNTP, that would be City Council Notice to Proceed, is what that
Right.
was supposed to stand
It's
for
tonight.
in
Right.
July. And like Drake was just saying, that if you were to try to design this whole thing, there's many ways you could bid out everything that was shown on that concept, but if you were to design this whole thing, or at least a significant chunk of it, to a point where you could bid out a package of things to be built in that first black window of 2 months for 2027, that would be the 30, 60, 90% design completion of all the details, I guess you could say. The way that this was laid out, envisioned designing everything together, you could do one bid package for 2027 things, or you could bid the whole thing as one big project, but then just give the contractor, a longer time to do everything. I think if you bid it in a smaller 2027 bid package, that gives you a little bit more time, maybe 4 months to flesh out the details of the pavilion or other things in, the larger area of the park that you could bid out, and potentially still hit the 2028, having it available for 2028. One of the bigger things would be the building lead time, that we would just be able to arrive at what are we building, and get that, specified bid and then a contractor on board so they could order the structure. And then oftentimes these things have a decent lead time. You're talking 4 to 6 months oftentimes. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, and again, that discussion we would get into is, do you want a bigger pavilion with, I'll say, only a limited amount of kind of architectural elements to it, or a smaller building smaller pavilion with lots of architectural elements, right? Those are things that all impact cost, right? And that's kind of one of the things that we tried to show you, I think, on the last page there. And the amount of, we still kind of really do need to sharpen the pencil on how much space on the concessions building to have, you know, a functioning kitchen within it. You get too small, it doesn't work, right? And you need a certain size to just function, but you need storage areas. You're going to need some on-site storage for, you know, you're going to need like HVAC units on it, right? You're going to need closets for those, like some of those things, right? So, and all that takes space. So that's what we would move into in the next portion. And what Brandon was showing here was what are some of the, I'll say, the low-hanging fruit that could be constructed in spring of next year to get some implementation going and showing some wins out there. And then, as he said, the big items, it gives you a little more time to really work through some of those bigger items and to get your lead time for ordering elements and such.
Drake's memo addressed the 2027 items, which of course is up to you, but, you know, the volleyball courts, the swings, what were the playground, you know, we all feel like those things are achievable if we start really soon. And his memo also mentioned that you would probably need to order the playground in like this fall, so they could take delivery in the winter and then put it up as soon as conditions allow in the spring, which is oftentimes a good time to order too, because they'll offer maybe.
Yeah, we found a lot of vendors that that they offer deals going into the fall on recreational equipment. You order it, you won't pay for it until the next budget season, meaning after January 1. But you got to take delivery of it when it's ready and store it somewhere. That's the deal you get. Sometimes I have seen as much as 50% off on equipment, which, as you know, on the park side can be substantial. I'm not promising that, but I have seen that because they want to produce and know that they have a product going out the door. They just don't want to hold on to it, right?
Okay. What process are you envisioning taking us through if we support the concept this evening, and then we have significant design decisions to make in order to achieve all of the milestones that you're kind of thinking here to get a 2027, you know, some elements in 2027? What process are you envisioning? Is that working sessions with the council? Are you envisioning that being every single council meeting we have a dialogue on a part? Like, what are you envisioning, how we help make this happen?
That's the next piece for us to package together is a detailed schedule, obviously the work effort associated with that. We would outline, you know, I wouldn't envision every council meeting, but there may be, you know, some meeting, like regular meetings with you or work sessions with you to just work through those elements. We want to make sure that we're happy with the vendors that we're bringing. I mean, they're the ones that we brought so far, ones that we've worked with in the past and have had good luck with. And you've seen some of their products, but the same goes through on playgrounds. There are a lot of playground vendors out there. We want to reach out to them saying, hey, this is the things we're looking for. Put your best foot forward if you want to ultimately be selected, right?
Yes. We would ask Dustin and Brandon to put together a calendar laying out when decisions have to be made by the city council for certain components of this plan. And then we would have to decide, the council would have to decide how much discussion time are you going to need to come to those decisions in order to be comfortable by that date making a decision to send us forward. So like Dustin said, the next step is developing that calendar as well as developing essentially a design task order for approval from this body to kick off starting to be able to get to the point where decisions need to be made on design components of specific amenities in order to meet timelines. And then that's also the time where we can flesh out, these are the pieces that can wait, that we don't have, that we're not prioritizing to install on an expedited schedule. So I think, you know, my goal is, you know, not to put them on the spot, is by, you know, July 21st to have a design budget put together, a task order put together for council consideration, as well as hopefully at least a preliminary decision calendar.
And I would add to that even if we were to only do 2027 things, I still think it's smart to design those things in the whole context. So that, you know, we would really need to start designing a significant portion of this concept to be able to bid smartly designed, horizontally, vertically placed 2027 elements this winter. Another thing that I would add is, in terms of the process that you asked about, is I've done projects like this with like steering committees, if you will, where you can meet, not necessarily like publicly noticed in the paper council meetings, not saying they're not public meetings, but that you can appoint interested vested parties, you know, maybe it's 8 people, couple being council members, perhaps, Public Works Board, Parks Board. I did another project recently that's how we kind of gathered a conglomeration of people, and there was meetings often. You know, we're talking once a week, once every 2 weeks. Not saying that's what you have to do by any means, but that's another option that, especially with an accelerated design schedule with lots of decision points, you know, and you also have other agenda items at every council meeting, you know, that if this project becomes an hour discussion at every council meeting, you know, that might be a little onerous. So just a thought.
The key, though, is whatever the process is, it's someone empowered to make a decision to keep design moving forward on an aggressive schedule, right? So, you know, really the council has to decide where do they want that decision-making authority to lie, and, you know, that's you. If it's others.
Yeah, and the other project that I was referencing is a project in Shawano that the council saw the progress regularly, and you can, you know, walk it back if you don't like what you're seeing that was coming out of the steering committee. It was just a way to take, you know, input, kind of move things forward with people who the council or the community had kind of chosen as the figureheads of various interests in the space, and kind of like advance it more often than every 2 weeks at council meetings. So.
Lisa?
So back to my concerns about the parking lot area, which I think on the budget line item is called parking lot B. That's that eastern section. So Brandon, you said something that sort of caught my attention about design. And is it possible for you to estimate like how much it would cost to design that area, and therefore like how much we would be quote unquote wasting if we didn't end up building it?
Certainly, yeah.
So what could you
estimate?
How much would it cost to design parking lot B?
Like just looking at that dollar value, maybe 45,000. I don't know. I'm kind of, it just is a rough.
So like 10% of the
just a rough
cost.
percentage.
Yeah, I mean, there's economy of scale when you're doing everything together, and so.
On the flip side, though, the council chose and said, we want that parking area to be a future phase. We could simply not design it, but size the other components to accommodate for, assuming it will be an impervious space in the future, and therefore it's not necessarily, you know, wasted, quote unquote, although it's only wasted if you never do it, right? But you could size everything appropriately, assuming that it happens, but not actually design parking lot B.
Yeah, you could assume that you're just going to have grading, and you're just going to have a level site that, you know, your grades, et cetera, as you're going through the rest of the site design, you know where it needs to be. And if you came back in the future and said, great, let's do a parking lot.
Yeah.
It's a pretty low hanging fruit, so you did all the legwork.
To his point, you know, that's the area of the B level, that there may be some demolition, which he has in the process, you know, are getting rid of all the old roadways, the utilities, are you capping them? And, you know, there's some activities that you might want to do there no matter what.
Yeah.
That it might make sense to kind of grade it a little bit as well.
So I guess I'm ready to make a motion, and I'm just trying to figure out how to incorporate that piece into it. And I don't know if my council members will agree with me, but to, you know, approve the concept plan that we've seen with the exception of that parking lot B to move ahead for design. But I don't know, I like the way you were describing it, Drake, to still, you know, plan for that area to be impervious just for the sake of stormwater management for the rest of the design.
is there consensus on the council on, as I'm just thinking about how to
Good
word
question,
this,
yeah.
on the 100 stalls, the parking lot B being a future project, accounting for potential impervious space in, you know, the stormwater design and such, but not including parking lot B in the current construction calendar? If not, we can work that out through motions, but I'm just trying to figure out the best advice to give you.
I don't know, how do other people feel? Do you want to go ahead and design B? I mean, we can still not build it right away, but we would be spending the money to design it.
Well, my thoughts on the space is to have it designed optimally, which I would say then would keep B in for design, but I think we have the decision on how and where we spend our money and phase it.
I can
Which
also bring you,
No.
you can approve the concept plan, and I can also ask Brandon and Dustin to bring a design cost with parking lot B and without, and you can decide at the next meeting which route to take.
That would be, version Q at that point?
No, concept won't change. The concept won't
No, it may
change.
end on S.
Well, now we're talking about phasing of S,
Oh,
not,
okay.
not a new
Yeah.
concept.
Well, and we may decide to go ahead with it. I'm also just thinking about, trying to shave the peak on our borrowing. So we're not borrowing $9 million in 2 years. Maybe we're borrowing $9 million over 5 years or something like that. So trying to think about, or maybe we're not borrowing that much, but just saying, not having such a big spike in expenditures if we're doing this on a fast track.
Don't we have monies allocated for Sandy Beach already?
You have some that could go towards design. There's about $480-ish thousand in designated funds for Sandy Beach related.
I thought there was like 2.
No,
And
nothing that was borrowed.
Nothing
We're
that
talking
was borrowed.
Funds
Yeah.
that are on
Okay,
hand
okay.
is from a previous, essentially project that didn't occur 1 or 2 years ago.
got it.
Well, I'm going to make a motion to adopt the Sandy Beach concept plan as we've been presented tonight and direct the city manager to present a task order to the city council for the full design of the improvement project.
Mr. Coots will second.
We have a motion by Lisa Curler, a second by Greg Coots.
So the motion was right out of Drake's memo in case he's looking for the words, the language.
Yeah, we have a motion to adopt the Sandy Beach concept plan and direct the city manager to present a task order to the city council for the full design of the improvement project. Is that correct? Okay. I have one question outstanding regarding this particular motion and how it relates to the opinion of cost. So when we say we are approving to move forward, is this the budget we're approving? Where does the money come into the conversation?
Yeah, you can't approve the budget right now.
But-
So
or the- or this- so this-
essentially what you're saying with this motion is that this is the vision of the city council. This concept plan is your vision. And that we will bring forward a task order for the design of this vision. Whether to actually construct anything, you'll have to have independent approvals of as we go through that process.
Thank
So
you.
you can chisel, you can delay, you can remove as you go through that, as you decide what resources you're willing to commit, to this. So no, that is not an approved budget. That's only informative for you on what, at this point, at the very high-level planning stages, with healthy contingencies built into that budget, to bring this to fruition, that is a high-level opinion of probable
Yep.
cost.
Thank you, that's helpful. That's my only question. Any other question or conversations? Okay, then we should have a roll call, please, Misty.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Exciting to see
Thank
this.
you both.
Yeah.
Thanks
Yeah,
for your
it's
patience.
exciting.
Well, in City Council, this was in our strategic plan as one of our top priorities, so I think we've made great progress. This is a big step for us. Great conversation. Thank you all. Next, we have Resolution 26-61. Misty.
Resolution 26-61, acceptance of donation of $9,000 from our Rock Lake Improvement Association and authorization to execute agreement with Native Range Ecological for green infrastructure planning at Sandy Beach.
Okay, so this is related to Sandy Beach, and we discussed this somewhat at our planning session, but Drake, did you want to add additional
Sure.
information?
Yep, so it was discussed a little bit at the work session. One of the things that the council had asked was, obviously, the total cost of the proposal. The original donation amount was at the $3,000 level, and so there was a request on if RLIA might be interested at supporting it at a higher level. They did have a vote of their board over the weekend and did approve a total donation amount of $9,000. The total cost of the full proposal is $19,000. This is really broken down into two parts. So the first part, the larger part of it, is developing a kind of, I guess, we'll call it a restoration plan for green infrastructure in the already completed boat launch side of Sandy Beach. The smaller portion of the proposal is to incorporate green infrastructure features into the future design of improvements at Sandy Beach. I did have a conversation with our contact at Native Range Ecological. There is opportunity for still some cost-saving measures. They need to do a certain level of analysis of existing conditions, hydrology and soil conditions essentially, but when you look in A that's broken down, there is not a need to generate the as-built report. So that would reduce costs, the principal said as well, without affecting the ultimate recommendations that would come out of it. So I'm blanking, is that A2? A1. A1 could be shrunk essentially to reduce costs within that proposal and still result in an action plan moving forward on how to incorporate more green infrastructure into it. So that's just a less, the report wouldn't be generated, but the data that would be necessary would still be collected for them to generate their recommendations. So I believe that the actual is $15,200 for the Sandy Beach launch area for the services that are proposed, and then $3,800 for the services proposed in the future areas of Sandy Beach to be completed. And so that's $9,000 of that. $9,000 of that $19,000 would be contributed by RLIA, which I think represents a significant commitment on their behalf to this type of project and to partner with the city on.
Do we have anyone from RLIA here this evening, by chance? No.
Don't see anyone here.
I just had a specific question. I don't know, Drake,
I can try.
if you've had conversations with this firm, in B1, when it talks about the services for the Sandy Beach Park redesign, it talks about a preliminary scope it will be limited to phase 1, and it's limited to 20 hours. And I'm just curious, like, how far along does that get us? And so we'll start with the 3,800, and then, I don't know what the expected full cost is, or that read to me as if it was just giving us like a portion of the work, and then we can continue to pay work on a time and materials basis. So I wasn't sure. I really understood what they were doing with the launch, but then I got to this point and I wasn't clear on the costs and what the outputs would be and whether it would be outstanding. So we say it's 19,000, but it's really 25,000 because we have more to invest here in the Sandy Beach part.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have a specific answer for you
Okay.
on that. I can say that in my conversations with him, the cost of being involved early in the process and incorporating these into design early on results in lower cost for those services than kind of the restoration piece of it.
Okay.
So I think that contributes to the difference in cost between the services being proposed in the Sandy Beach launch area and then kind of incorporating some ideas on the front end into the design on things that haven't happened yet. But certainly, I think that it's possible that at the completion of it, there's an opportunity for additional services to be considered. But Mr. Frazier, Clayton Frazier, has not stated that like another proposal would be forthcoming at the time that this was completed.
Okay, thank you. That helps clarify. Go ahead, Jim.
Gifts of money usually come with either restrictions on use or at least stated desires on how it should be used. What are the restrictions on the use of this money?
Sure. Let me pull that up. Essentially, RLIA is aware that the contract with the firm would be with the city. We would be the client. In consideration of the significant investment on their hand, they're looking to be involved. Sorry, I'm just pulling it up. They'd like to be an active partner, so they would like to be able to view the designs, be appraised of project timelines, be afforded the ability to communicate progress with their members, and then, of course, just ensuring that the funds are spent on the design as the donation is contingent upon.
Okay, so they're in essence paying us to do something on our land.
That's correct, yes.
Okay,
And they'd like to maintain communication with us throughout the process to see the fruits of that.
Can you be a little more specific on what they're paying for? I mean, that is a native range, I guess, native plants and animals and whatnot, but do those restrictions get any more specific than, we going to have people overseeing what is being done by the city and saying, no, you can't do that?
No.
Not that?
No, I think that they think the communication they've had with me is simply being informed of progress, having the opportunity to look at what's being proposed, offer some feedback on it. But they acknowledge that the contract with this firm will be between the city and the firm, and that ultimate decision authority remains with the city council on what is to be implemented.
So they don't have approval, disapproval of now, and who's responsible on the city for this? The Parks Department?
Oversight of like this
Oversight.
contract.
Right.
It'll be ultimately oversight falls within me, but on a day-to-day basis, the most interaction will likely be with Director of Public Works and our park staff.
Okay, well, now, it's nice to know when you get money, what you can do with it.
Sure, no, absolutely. I think that's part of the reason why donations are required to be accepted by the city council because of stipulations and responsibilities that may come with it.
Come with strings attached.
I believe RLIA began this conversation when and intended to a lower donation amount, and I believe this is much higher. I know they have a very strong interest in trying to mitigate or reduce or eliminate any kind of E. coli on the beaches, and geese mitigation is like one, I guess, action that some of these native plants will do, but it's mainly stormwater management, and so I think this is a very generous donation for something that I think is important, and a percentage, like investment basis, like 19,000 out of the 6 to 8 million that we're going to be spending, to me, is an investment well worth making, in my opinion. Yes, Lisa?
Thank you. Jim, I really appreciate you bringing that up, and I had kind of a similar thought or sort of a question about the the role of Rock Lake Improvement Association and also sort of their expectations, which are two different things. But in item B in this contract, there is a reference to B being an iterative planning effort that's coordinated with the city, the engineering team, and the Rock Lake Improvement Association. And that caught my attention because I would not expect that they're going to be like sitting at the table in design meetings and conversations. Certainly, they can be kept informed, and I would understand for their investment that they would want to be kept informed, but I wouldn't want them to have greater access to information than the council has and that our citizens have. And so that was just something I wanted to point out. And I don't know, Drake, how you would think about managing that on a day-to-day basis, but I just want to make sure that they're not, having an expectation to like regularly attend meetings and influence the output since it is a city contract.
I think one
good point.
thing I should have touched on with Jim's question was one of the requirements of the donation is using this firm. So Clayton Frazier, the firm was identified by RLIA as someone that they thought could benefit the city, and they offered the donation for it. So
Does that fit with our bid process on open bids?
it's not. It is since it's for design services. We're not required to publicly bid it. We can't. It's a service being provided, so we can choose to engage with this firm without going through that process.
Some of these ecological donations and all restrict the use by humans. That is, we don't want you to mess it up. So if we're talking about Sandy Beach, obviously,
Right.
that's not going to particularly fit if it's restricted, human use is restricted. So that's one of the questions I asked, but I guess it was kind of obvious. But that doesn't come along with the grant of the money, that we can't allow people to go in these areas because there's some fungi growing there that you'll step on.
No. And then I guess to follow up on your question, Lisa, I guess from an operational perspective, I think it would be, maintaining open communication with the leadership of RLIA so that they can communicate to their board as far as what our next steps are, what progress is, where we're at in the process, and then as there are, I guess, perhaps updates to city council, letting them know when those are going to occur so that they can offer feedback to the city council as well on what they're seeing. But certainly the intent would never to be to provide information prior or more so to the donor group than to the city council. And I don't think that's an expectation of RLIA in this process. I think it's more remaining communicative and ensuring that they can show their membership the progress that's being made, what the next steps are, and ultimately what the outcome is, and that this is what their donation purchased.
What is the name of the firm that they designated?
That's Native Range Ecological.
Okay, and is there any connection between that firm and its management with city employees, officers, or to your knowledge?
No, not to my knowledge, no.
So I guess I'd just like to share my thoughts with my fellow council members. I know that Rock Lake Improvement Association has long been interested in helping to try to address E. coli and beach closures. What I think is interesting about this proposal is it's looking both at the boat launch area, which is already, that construction is complete, and then looking at the new areas and the beach redevelopment that we're working on and we were talking about tonight. I don't think anybody really knows what's causing the E. coli surges, and it could be a combination of things. And could be geese, could be gulls, could be humans, all of the above. What I like about this is that, let's look at ways to improve our current situation, not try to figure out what is the cause and spend money to pinpoint exactly what the cause is, but let's take advantage of an opportunity to try to, find ways to improve water quality. Having said that, and I had called Drake about this earlier today, I don't think an as-built is necessary. That just tells you how it got constructed compared to what the plans were. Well, here we are, 6 years after it was constructed. It is what it is. Let's take advantage of the consultant to figure out if there's a way to improve the stormwater management and the ecological values that it can provide by the boat launch, and then I'd like to focus on the beach part. So my suggestion would be that we would adopt this, or, move forward with this, but reduce that A1 item, reduce the scope of that to eliminate the as-built. And I would also propose that we maximize the city's cost at $9,000, so then we're sort of matching, so to speak, our LIA, and then that way we don't get into with number B, or letter B, additional hours. We don't want anybody to expect that this is an unlimited, pot of money that we're authorizing. So I see a few nods, so I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 26-61 with an additional text at the end of "be it further resolved." So see how this would read at the end of the sentence where it says, "In the proposal dated April 22nd, 2026, with the following conditions. Item A1 is modified to eliminate preparation of an as-built survey, and city costs do not exceed $9,000.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Lisa Curler and a second by Michelle Quidnow for accepting the resolution with following conditions that Lisa had articulated. Anyone need those conditions reread to make sure we're all clear? Misty? Or Dan? You're good? Okay. Any questions of Lisa or comments, discussion? Okay, Misty, roll call, please.
Ms. Quidnow?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Ms. Schmager?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, next item on the agenda is ordinance 1293. Misty, this is our first reading.
Ordinance 1293, an ordinance annexing territory to the city of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin.
Okay, so this is our first reading, so this will be on our next agenda. Is there any discussion while we're here on first reading? Go ahead.
I just was going to ask a question. I know often these are either failing septic or failing well. I don't know if we have any information on the reason for this petition.
It says the zoning for the work, for ultimately what they'd like to do with the parcel is they can accomplish it under city zoning after the annexation has been approved. So ultimately, there's going to be a land division here
okay.
and some redevelopment of the existing parcel. So that is the main impetus behind it.
Okay, thank you.
And then there will be connection to utilities.
Okay.
And that kind of, I think you kind of answered the thing I was wondering about too. It looked like there were two addresses listed and one parcel that was an acre and a half that was being annexed, but it sounds like that the plan is that that's going to be divided at some point in the future.
There are two principal residents on the parcel right now. That's the point. They want two parcels to be able to sell.
All right.
So they'll separate that under local zoning, under the city's ordinances, and then there will be redevelopment, there will be connection to infrastructure, et cetera.
Okay. And because this is a flag lot, we don't see any problems with that.
Existing conditions.
Yeah, it's an existing condition. They contemplate a shared driveway, which is allowed
Okay.
under our zoning code so long as we have a shared driveway agreement. I think as this process develops, there's probably room for a discussion on potentially a connection from Highland to North Shore or use of this property in a different way. That would be further down the line, but at this point, they're contemplating a shared driveway and pulling the services essentially from the Highland Drive area. The North Shore currently dead ends from north to south into the property, and there's a drastic grade change there, so you're not looking at access from that side. And also, that's not in city jurisdiction.
Thank you.
Okay, so last item, announcements and recommendations for future agendas. Michelle?
I just want to put it on everyone's radar. The library board received 3 bids for the construction. Unfortunately, the bids are higher than we have budgeted for. So we're taking the lowest bid and we're talking with FEH to determine next steps, how we can modify the plans so that it can be helpful.
I'd be very hesitant in what you just stated. You've
Okay.
gone through an open bidding process, and what we
Yes.
do is analyze those bids before we enter into negotiation with any single
Okay.
bidder, which would likely be completely inappropriate.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm not going to be at the next meeting, and I believe Jim's not either. I'm not sure what the plans are for the next meeting.
I think if we have 3,
We have
we
three, you
can
can still have it.
Yes, we can. Yep, so
Okay.
Lisa, Michelle, and I are going to have to be healthy. Make it to the meeting.
Okay.
And I wanted to check with Drake or Dan. Am I going to be on for the Plan Commission this month? We're going to have it?
There are other items that are on that agenda, so yes.
Thank you.
I have, just would like to share that the Joint Rock Lake Committee tomorrow has 2 topics that are new and recent. Well, one of them is a carryover from the Parks Board, looking at the safety at Bartles Beach, but the active motors by the ropes, but also that extends to Sandy Beach. If there's anything that's in the short term that can be addressed before we do the Sandy Beach redesign. And secondly, they've added a discussion regarding lifeguards on Sandy Beach on the agenda. So just to share that the Joint Rock Lake Committee will be looking at that as a part of their conversation and agenda tomorrow. Drake, did you have anything for coming agenda topics?
Not right now.
Not right now?
No.
Okay.
No.
Sandy Beach, likely? Yes, Jim?
I'm expecting, some discussion, and I thought we'd have a speaker tonight, but apparently she didn't show up, about the drowning at Sandy Beach last week, and her request, I think we all received the same email, that the city hire lifeguards to go to Sandy Beach. And, you know, it goes without saying that having lifeguards there would be a good thing. The only question is, how much will it cost, and are they needed? So I'd be interested in what the risk is. For example, if it's a risk at Sandy Beach, it's also a risk at Bartles Beach, but, you know, a much smaller risk. So we need to consider how much safety we can afford, you know, and whether that's something that's happened very often, or I don't know. I don't know if anyone has that history, but it is something that should be a topic of discussion.
Well, the Joint Rock Lake Committee has that on their agenda for tomorrow evening, and their expectation, they will bring a recommendation forward to City Council. We do have 2 city members who are part of that committee, and so that subject will be addressed, and
Okay,
I expect they will,
get up for us then.
yeah, they'll be, I'm certain we'll be having an in-depth discussion to bring recommendations forward to the council.
Another subject that relates to Sandy Beach is a recommendation that the parking system be set up to permit free parking for 1 hour, for example, or a half an hour, so that people could come in, drop off kids and leave without having to be charged, or people could come in, order food from the food truck, leave without being charged. I mean, obviously, it would take a change because you'd have to read plates on the way in and on the way out. But it is something I think we should consider. And finally, the order that we discuss resolutions, I believe, is set by Lake Mills City Code 38-3. They're generally, I believe, presented in the order that they were filed. You know, I'm not sure how we could change that, but I think that it would be to the advantage of the community to discuss items that we could decide are of most public interest early, rather than making citizens sit here until the last thing of the night, you know, to discuss the issue that's the most interest in, rather than going through all the others. So
Jim?
that's something, yes.
I would maintain that all of the items on the agenda are of public interest, which is why they are on the agenda.
Well, some of them are not very much of public interest. I mean, we even have to be, even members of have to figure out, well, what's that for? I mean,
Where I'd go on this topic as an initial point is that, as Jim stated, there is an order of, that's essentially required by ordinance that addresses resolutions before ordinances specifically. Under your system, the parliamentarian, the council president, certainly has the authority to move the agenda around. Otherwise, at any point, two members by motion, second, and the subsequent vote could move the agenda around.
Okay.
The ordinances are really created rather than, I mean, I think that there's an aspect of it that is the operation of a meeting, but it's also an instruction to staff in how to prepare the agendas on a weekly basis or regular basis. So you do have breadth with regard to the operations of your board. Some communication with staff as to the appropriateness under the ordinances of the agenda setting may be appropriate in the future.
so if we have, then it's already possible. If we have an item that we know is going to attract a lot of interest and a lot of speakers, you know, like the rezoning, well, that was a plan commission matter, but rezoning or taxing or something like that, then with, on a board ourselves, with the decision of the chair, of the president, we could move that up on the agenda.
Yeah, typically the city council, and we have in the past, and there has been times in the past, the city council president will say, I'm aware there's so-and-so in the audience waiting to either present or hear on this item without, if there's no objection, I request moving item D up to item in
Right.
front of item A.
Good. All right, that's all, that will do it then. I don't need to make any, we don't need to change any regulations to do that.
Well, and Jim, I thank you for bringing it up, and I did just want to add to what others have shared, that we actually just updated that part of our city code about a year ago, and that was one of the sections that we modified slightly, so the public had a chance to comment on that about a year ago, and I think with the process that Dan described, it's working pretty well, where you can kind of react in the moment. If there are a lot of people there for an item, you can move it around a little bit, so.
Yeah, the council's also requested in the past that we try and have items in which we have consultants presenting earlier in the agenda so that they can leave earlier and therefore, you know, limit the city's costs for the time that they're here. So, you know, I think remaining nimble at the beginning of meetings and moving things around is I think best, unless the city council wanted to provide staff with, you know, some strict guidelines in which to adhere to, but it's always the prerogative of this body to move your agenda around, and the simplest form is by unanimous consent, so if nobody objects, you can discuss things in the order in which you'd like.
Okay, seeing we have no other business, I will call the meeting adjourned at 8:57. Thanks, everybody.
Yes.
Yes, and
Less
it
boring
would have
than
been there
it
each of
looked
the
like
last
it would be
meetings,
when
but there were no other.
No other business?
You never know what's coming.
And I get it, and then staff show up and they don't have to, so that's fine, but. I'm really hoping that, I really feel, it's like, it's been 3 months now, I hope that you finally do have it.
I don't know. I really
I gotta
don't
look them up and
know.
remember what I wrote at this point.
I know that,
Well, I'm looking forward to them whenever they arrive.
Thanks.
Marty Dool, who runs the food truck,
So who wanted to have a long talk with you before you got here, your wife?
My daughter.
Oh, your daughter.
temporary parking, so people can come in.
I kept wanting, I should have turned that off. The green was,
Or
oops.
no, no
I was gonna
parking,
be-
I mean, no parking restrictions after.
No, I need to do that.
Last thing is want to come down here and watch
You're on time.
sunset come up. Yeah, he came in.
No problem.
He came in.
It takes me about, what, 6-7 minutes to bring it.
We'd already cut off the public speaking,
It's not far.
that part.
I'm home from
so he
work.
didn't get to see
You
it.
made it fun.
But no, I don't know what the element said, are you coming here tonight for a specific?
Well, yeah, she's
I just like the time.
a 16-year-old girl and she's ambitious and she, yeah.
That's good.
Kind of interesting, I suppose, that we have.
oh, I got an F after my
She
name.
has a job and then she got a second job and she's enrolling.
Way to find out how many people
So, you know, it's like, well,
We used to when we were
I don't care.
I don't know if we're broadcasting.
yeah.
I'm pretty easy
Because-
But you
going.
can see
I think that's all I can
Dave
for
was
you.
our tech guy, and, you know, he could tell you, it's basically
In
a
our
Zoom.
church service, you know, sometimes I sit there in the pew and I
Oh,
dive into
yes,
the
I do.
live, when I make
Sorry,
sure the
it's-
sound
yeah,
is
it's
on, little echo, but you can see, you know,
I got a lot
like
of paper, like in my paper, like
yeah,
keep, get rid of, I got too many papers, like, this is a,
Rock
yeah,
Lake
you
Fest.
too, thanks for your help.
Is that the one over by Brookstone?
No, it's right across from the,
and, but then she's like, you know, keeping all
I thought that
the
was,
things.
now,
oh, the grade school.
yeah, the grade school.
Got it,
About
the little
2
one.
blocks away,
Professor.
there's a method.
Yeah, that's
And
my
I,
church.
Oh, is that?
but it says to type my number in here, but.
I do.
I was a member.
I put my number, but it's not working.
For a while?
And I almost just looked